The views on this program do not reflect those of ONTV or its board of directors. Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to OAA Now. Here I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger around the OAA, the host of Last Three Brain Cells, and the host of Queen Tomatoes on Orion Television. I'd like to welcome those watching on the local voice on SoundCloud and those watching Orion Television. A lot to talk about here this week here on the podcast here. We're going to break. We have a new boys basketball coach up at Stony Creek. Also, we're going to recap the regional for track and field. Also, the matchups are now officially announced for baseball, softball, and, of course, girls soccer. MHA also released the boys soccer districts. So we'll take a look at those. I mean, under the boys soccer districts, I'm still working on those on the blog at blogspot.com. So let's go to our main story here in this boys basketball. There's a new boys basketball coach at Stony Creek. So Stony Creek, obviously last month, Jeff Owen was let go at Stony. They have a new boys basketball coach and Marco Tomic taking over the program. Of course, the move was confirmed by Stu Carlton to the D zone. He takes over for Owen. Of course, Owen went 19-47 in his 3 years coaching the program at Stony Creek. You kind of look at, of course, his background. Obviously, he was an assistant at Royal Shrine under Coach Mike Mariansky. So you think about, obviously for Stony Creek is, what drove Tomic to get the job at Stony? What drove him? I mean, obviously it was an opportunity to put his own stamp on his program. Royal Shrine, under Mariansky was around 500 this past season. So basically, you kind of look at this and you think to yourself, this is a golden opportunity for me to maybe prove myself as a coach. I know he always wants to prove himself as a coach, and I think really this is an opportunity for him in his mind to say, you know what, I can get my system in here in a program that's been honestly pretty down in the dumps, give me an opportunity. So when you look at this opportunity, you kind of think about what Stony Creek is. The kids are good. They're a good group of kids. I know athletic director Brian Anderson's done a really nice job. Despite, everything that's been going around the program, I know that he is, I know that I've been hearing a lot of rumblings. He might be stepping down at the end of the year. Been hearing a lot of rumblings about that. But when you look at this hire here, to me, I just think there's some questions. There is some serious questions because, obviously I know Mariansky very well. I know what he's done personally. I know what he's done as a coach. He's done a really nice job. And, and obviously, Tomic is trained behind him, obviously, so now you look at this job here, and I know he's very good friends with John Jokai, Adam Warren De La Salle. I know, obviously, formerly at Warren De La Salle, now at Oakland Community College. So, but when I look at this move here, and I look at what he's walking into, I would call Stony Creek right now a hornet's nest. Because, and I mean that, because you look at Stony Creek, 19-47 last 3 years. And then you look at, obviously, the pressure he's going to have to face with the parents over there. I mean, he's got to get on the same page with the parents because you kind of think about it is, you kind of think about the turmoil that they've been through. I mean, you kind of think about the past and, the struggles that, and a lot of these coaches have left Stony Creek. A lot of it has been because of peer pressure from the parents. And if you're Tomich, you're gonna have to be really firm, really honest with them. You're gonna have to be honest with them because you kind of look at with Stony Creek, with their parents. It's like I know their son or daughter they want playing time, but when you look at the role of playing time, you gotta look at wins and losses. You gotta look at it. I think for the parents there, if you're in a produce results league, there's gonna be times where your son or daughter's not gonna play a lot of minutes, or if not at all. So and I know that that's been Stony Creek's biggest issue the last few years has been obviously the changeover. So I'm curious to see how he's going to handle that situation when it comes to parents, because that is the number one biggest worry that I have for anyone who takes, for anyone, you know what I mean? Who takes, and especially at a place like Stony Creek where, when you're in a produce results league, you got to produce results. And, you got to look at, and in the Stony Creek's boys case, with what happened with Jeff Owen, obviously the results weren't there. I mean, 19-47, that basically says all you need to know. So parent pressure is going to be the biggest challenge that I think he's going to face over there. And obviously, it comes a come and take, you know what I mean? When it comes to that situation. So that's going to be one of the challenges that Tom is going to face. What's going to help him is look at who Stony Creek has coming back. I mean, you look at players like KJ Schuster, Anthony Ehrighaus, Quentin Regai, Jack Frenberger, Charlie Carson, Joey Miller. I mean, they played a lot of minutes last year for Stony. They played a lot of minutes. So that'll help him. That'll help Tomich with this program. It's going to help him. The most interesting one is going to be how he handles program strength. Because Stony Creek, they had program strength. I mean, you look at, of course, their freshman program was really good this year. They were really, really good. And then you look at the JV program. So the JV, they were okay. Obviously, Coach Towns, Coach Caleb Towns, the JV coach there, put in a diamond press. And then when they got to varsity, that's where I really felt like the disconnect was there, was that transition from JV to varsity. I mean, you kind of think about maybe going from freshman to JV as well. That was where the disconnect was. When you look at that program, and I think that's going to be something that Tomich is going to have to address. Is he has to address the program strength component, because, and also for him is that he's got to get those kids got to get them believing in the winning again. And I think really you look at this team, you look at Stony Creek, and obviously you look at the success that freshman teams had. You look at the last 3 years, the current junior class, they had a really nice year in JV. They really had a nice year in freshman ball. They really did. So don't get me wrong here. So I will be very curious to see how he handles his staff, because, and it's got to be a staff, you know what I mean? Obviously, to where, they gotta put in. I think this is a program that needs to start completely from scratch, because, you kind of look at the system that Steve Norgrove put in there at Stony. He did a really nice job there. When Jeff Owen took over, I know he wanted to go up and down. I think what Tomich has to do is put a system in there where it will benefit the kids, to their strengths. And, and I think, it's going to have to, unfortunately, it's going to start in lower levels because you're going to have to put your system in place. You know what I mean? And it might have to start maybe in the middle school ranks, maybe at Hart. I mean, maybe sometimes over at Ruther, because those are your two feeder systems that bring kids into Stony Creek. So really, that's where I think you got to start really putting your program is in the middle school level. So there's going to be some challenges for them going forward when it comes to, obviously the challenges for Thomas is going to be parent pressure, and obviously putting the program into place. Now, what helps is having that experience. It's going to help him a lot. But the question for me is going to be is this, this junior class going to be seniors willing to accept the transition period in their final year? That is the big question mark for Thomas. That's the big question. There is so many questions with this program. And I know a lot of the kids at Stony are probably going to say, well, this is a big get for us. This is going to be, a big get for us. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if, if he can get his image into that program, that's a start. That is going to be a start. But there's so many questions with this. There is a ton of questions with this. And you think about everything that's been going around there. Obviously, you look at Stony Creek, there's a lot of questions over there. A ton of them. And, with the boys basketball situation, he's going to have to get his image in there. Now, what doesn't help Stony Creek here is you look at the division you're going to be in. You look at that division. Stony Creek was in the blue for 3 years under Owen. And it was not a fun experience. I mean, you look at some of those games that they lost. When they lost to Royal Oak, when they lost to Berkeley, when those two teams were down. They lost to Rochester when they were down. And then you look at and then, of course, you look at the Romeo game. I mean, you look at the Romeo game. He lost them twice. I mean, in different years. So, and then you look at, of course, your city rivals. I mean, you had that win against Adams last year. It was huge. But you had a really bad loss to Rochester. I mean, I remember, now Rochester's a good team, don't get me wrong. But there was a time when Rochester really struggled. And they beat Stony. So it comes down for me as expectation for them. It comes down to expectation. When you look at the division that they're going to be in, you look at the teams that they're going to have to see. They're going to have to see Rochester Adams. Adams, of course, is a team in the red last year. Yes, they got that win against them. But you look at what Adams is coming back. Of course, they have Cannon Flynn. So that's going to be a challenge for them. Rochester, arguably one of the best guards in the game, and Max Mall coming back. And they also got the younger Tandy coming up as well. So that's going to be a challenge for Stony Creek. That'll be something to keep an eye on there. Waterford Mott. You look at what Mott's got. I mean, they lost a lot, yes. I mean, but you got Dakari Stevens over there coming back for them, and we know what he's been doing in the AAU circuit for Coach Jeff Jason. So Waterford Mott, they're going to be a loaded team again. They're always going to be in the mix. And then you look at Oxford. Oxford lost everybody from last year's team, but they still got proven talent. Of course, with Brennan Elling there. And then you look at I think Oxford, with them, yes, they're going to be starting over a little bit, but they're still got talent over there. Don't get me wrong. Elling's a very good player for them. He is going to be a really good player for them. And then there's Lake Orion. I mean, Lake Orion, yes, they lost Zach Parks. They may not have Ryan Washlow, but you do return some really good key players, and Will Farmer, Max Nearing. You look at Nate Giacalone, Jackson Shosky, and they got a solid four core there. And then you got some emerging talents over there with Lake Orion, especially with their JV team. Albeit, yeah, Lake Orion's JV did lose to Stony earlier. I mean, like in the season, but I think when you look at Lake Orion, if Ryan Washlow comes back for Coach Jose Andrade, that is a big, big deal for this team. So there's going to be a lot of questions with them, especially in the interior. But obviously with them, I still think they're going to be a good basketball team. Regardless if Washlow plays or not. Obviously, yes, you lose Zach Parks, it's a big deal, but you're going to have guys that have been through it. Jack Aloney's emergent scorer. I'm curious to see how Joey Dugan does with Lake Orion. I'm very curious to see how he does. So when I look at the division Stony Creek's going to be in, you're going to be in a very competitive division. You're going to be in a very competitive division. And we're not even talking the non-league schedule yet. You're still going to have to play Adams. And we know how good Adams is. Isaiah Novak's done a really nice job of that program. He really has. As I mentioned, they got Cannon Flynn. Last year was kind of like a trial by fire for Coach Novak. You kind of think about it with them. It's going to come down to is can Adams find a way. I think Adams will be competitive. I really think all five of these teams in the division will be competitive. But for Stony Creek, it's going to come down to is, can this group, especially the senior class, buy in? Can they buy in? And I'm not talking just the players. I'm talking about the parents too. Can they buy in to what Thomas is preaching? Can they buy in? Because obviously, I know he's been well known in the basketball community, but I just think it's going to come down to is can those kids buy in? And we're not even mentioning the district yet because there's a possibility that district might not change when the MHA releases the districts on probably around June 15th. I mean, the MHA will do that after the end of the season, after baseball, after softball, after their state finals, and after the girls' soccer finals. So it'll be interesting to see where they do with Stony, but you obviously know they're going to probably put them with Utica Eisenhower because of the distance between the two schools. It's really not that far. Then you have Adams, Rochester, Romeo, and Utica. If it's the same type of district that I think it's going to be, then, I think Stony Creek could be in, last year they ended up losing to Rochester Adams 48-46. It was a really competitive game. But when you look at the competitive level of Stony Creek, I think these kids are very competitive. I just think, obviously, you look at last year's team, you look at with them, you kind of look at those two losses to Ferndale University and Suffolk A&T. Both those two teams, obviously, you know what I mean? Ferndale University, much smaller school than Stony. But, you got to think about, those are teams you should not lose to. I mean, A&T is a pretty young team. I know they're looking for a new coach as well. I mean, I know Terrence Porter, he stepped down at A&T a couple weeks ago. So it'll be something to see how Tomic handles this situation. But there's just so many concerns that I have with this hire. Is can he get on the same page with the parents? Can he get on the same page with the players? What helps him is he's going to have a lot of returners back. But the question is, for those players, can they buy in to what he is preaching? And I think that's the big question that Stony Creek's going to have. And I really think there's two concerns that I have over there, and it's obvious the parents, and then also parents, the players, can they buy in? I mean, like, and then also being in a really tough division that they're going to be in, and also the district. So a lot of questions, a lot of concerns that I have with this hire. I know it's going to come down to there's going to be a transition period, and unfortunately for them, it's going to have to happen during the season. So I will be very curious to see how the scheduling looks for Stony Creek, particularly non-conference, because and then obviously for Tomich, it's going to be he's going to have to get his obviously got summer ball coming up, so that's going to be really interesting to see how he handles that. So so that's going to be something to really keep an eye on with Stony Creek is that situation, because obviously you kind of look at what's been going on with that program, and especially could this be the one that obviously with Stony Creek, it's going to be very interesting to see how that program does, how they operate, and I'll be curious to see how that one goes. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we're going to see what happens. All right, now let's go to some spring sports here. Obviously, the regional occurred this week in track and field. Couple of regionals I do want to talk about. I mean, obviously, you look at the Romeo regional. Obviously, Romeo had to survive that in the girls. I know they withheld the Troy Athens rally. I know Troy Athens went second, I think, in the girls. And then of course in the boys in Macomb, Dakota. And I think they showed why in the boys they won that one. But I think the regional I really want to look at is the ones at Rochester and also at Milford. Those are the two that had the most OA teams in both those regionals. I do want to talk first Rochester regional. I mean, Oak Park just proved. I mean, and especially the girls side. Oak Park's boys had to survive Rochester Fs. They had to survive them. But when you look at the point total that Oak Park scored in their points, Oak Park won the girls regional pretty convincingly, which was shocking because you kind of think about with them is you think about with Oak Park is the reason why they win a lot of state championships is because they load up the sprint events and they load up the hurdle events. And they somehow get some points in the mid-distance and also in the relays. That's where Oak Park gets the bulk of their points. And that's a Giles thing. That is a Giles thing. You think about it. You look at the points they got in the regional. 13 points in the 100. 15 in the 200. 22 in the 400. 22. Think about it. That's insane. 17 in the 800. And then you look at the mile and the 2 mile. Nothing. Zero. Nada. Then you look at the hurdle events. Between the 100 and the 300 hurdles, Oak Park combined for 39 points there. That's insane. That's nuts. 39 points in both hurdle events? That's crazy. That is really crazy. And if you think that's crazy enough, look at their relays. 36 points off the 4 relays. 36 points. 4x8, 10 points. 4x4, 10 points. 4x2, 10 points. 4x1, only 6. And then in the field events, they only had 2 points. And that was in the long jump. He didn't score in the shot, nor the discus, nor in the high jump. And I don't think they do pole vault over there at Oak Park. They don't do pole vault. So, kind of explain that that recipe has been Oak Park's formula, I think, since Giles came in there from Detroit Renaissance. It's the same format that he did when he was at Detroit Renaissance. Was to load up the sprint events, load up the mid distance, load up the hurdles, load up the relays. Oak Park, they have a lot of athletes who do that, particularly in the girls. They have a lot of them. I know he runs a full-fledged program over there. Goes during the summer, go in the fall, you know what I mean, and even in the winter months. I mean, this group is just running. They're just running, getting themselves better, and he's sending athletes over to to colleges. That tells you something right there. That's what Oak Park's been doing. In the boys, they had to survive. And they had to survive Rochester Adams. I was really surprised, honestly, with how Rochester performed in this region. I was really, really surprised. Because you look at Rochester, coming into the year, this team won the red title this year in both boys and girls. So I was completely shocked, completely baffled, that Rochester really struggled, in this regional as a team. They really struggled, and that was stunning. I don't know what stunned me the most. Was Oak Park's dominance, or the fact that Rochester finished fourth in the boys with 71 points and third with 78.5 points behind Detroit Renaissance and Oak Park. So, I was more surprised that I thought, honestly, to be honest, I thought Rochester could have been more competitive in the girls' side. Now, 78.5 points in the regional, that's pretty good. That's a good number. But when the other two top teams are obviously state powers like Oak Park and Detroit Renaissance, it's going to be a tough sell. It's going to be really, really tough. And then on the boys' side of things, Oak Park surviving Rochester Adams, they had to win the 4x4 to do that. Because if they got DQ'd, if they had I think it was maybe 7th or below, they lose that meet. They would lose that meet. So Oak Park had to survive Rochester Adams in that one. And we know how good Adams is. I mean, Oak Park had to basically survive that meet. They had to survive. Bottom line. So when I look at the rest of the rankings here in the regional, Groves was third with 75. Rochester fourth with 71. I was very surprised with Rochester. Troy fifth with 64. Stony Creek 47. Bloopy Hills was 35. 7th for 35. Stony Creek, as I mentioned, 47. Detroit Renaissance was 8th with 34 points. The girls' side, Troy was 7th with 35. 37.75. Seaholm was 9th with 27.25. Bloopy Hills 15. Groves 10. Berkeley 44, Stony Creek and 45, Royal Oak 58, Adams 67.25, Rochester 78.5, Detroit Renaissance 87.25, and Oak Park obviously dominating that one. So, just surprised with how dominant Oak Park was in that meet. Just really, really surprised there. Now let's go to the one at Milford. The Milford meet to me was, I knew it was going to be really, really tight there. I just knew it was going to be tight. I couldn't believe I was right on the money here in this one. I just could not believe I was right on the money. Because, when it came to scoring. Because, in the boys' side of things, it ended up being intense drama. It really did in that meet. We know how good Wall Lake Central is in the throws. We know, the strength of them is their throwing. That's always been the Vikings' strength. But when you look at a team like Clarkston, who's got balance, this year, this Wolves team, led by Coach Breen, has balance. They have sprints. They have distance. They have field events. I mean, Clarkston's balance was huge. It was huge in their win against Wall Lake Central. It was huge. West Bloomfield was third with 66 points. Now, West Bloomfield, we know, is a sprinting powerhouse there. They're a sprinting powerhouse. Nobody Detroit Catholic Central was fourth with 63. Lake Orion rounded out the top 5 with 60. Edging out both Milford and Wall Lake Western, both at 57 points each. So Lake Orion, and the boys, they had a nice day. They had a really, really nice day. I think this Lake Orion boys team is a year away. I think they're a year away. And you think about what that team could do. If Coach Andrew McDonald can get that program back to Stan Ford levels, I'm telling you, that's going to be something. That'll be a juggernaut. It will be a juggernaut. That is for sure. North Farmington was 8 with 42 points. Lapeer was 9th with 34. Oxford was 10th with 29. White Lake Lakeland was 11th with 27. Farmington was 12th with 26. Wall Lake Northern was 13th with 23. Kettering was 14th with 12 points. Holly was 15th with 4 points. Waterford Mott was 16th, rounding out the scoring with 3 points. So kind of think about it. You kind of think on the boys' side. Give Clarkston a lot of credit. That Clarkston team is very good. And could they make some noise at regional? Maybe. They could. Could make at the Oakland County? Maybe. Look at the girls' side. This was a tense drama. 3 teams had a chance to win this meet. 3. I said last week on the podcast, I said Lake Orion was going to win this regional because of their balance. Boy, was I right. You kind of look at the running of Abby Nearing. You kind of look at, of course, I think the difference, honestly, was shot. I think shot put was the difference here. Because you look at the scoring. You look at that scoring. Lake Orion won that meet 81.25-78. Pole vault, we know, is one of Lake Orion's strengths. We know that. But I really think shot put was the difference. Because you look at, in that meet, Madison Bowes-Nespo and Emily Atkins scored 3 points. Took 7th and 8th. So you look at it from an invitational standpoint, this is how an invitational works, and this is how the point system works. First place is 10 points. Second is 8. Third is 7. Third is 6. Fourth is 5. Fifth is 4. 6th is 3. 7th is 2. 8th is 1. So you think about it, you look at the points, you know what I mean? 3 points is a big difference. And I really think shot put was a big difference. And that's his honesty. You look at Clarkston. Clarkston, we know, is a very good team. I mean, Breen's done a really nice job with that team. Now, I was surprised in that meet with how Wall Lake Central performed in that one. I really wasn't surprised with Lake Orion or Clarkston. I really wasn't. But Wall Lake Central, I kind of thought could have done better. I really think that. But you look at the difference in that meet. It came down to 4x4. And Lake Orion basically held on. I mean, they basically held on. I mean, it was a really, really tight race in the 4x4. You kind of think about, and the girls' side of it here, That's the event where it came down to, the 4x4. Lake Orion took third in that. That's a big deal. And they held off Clarkston. That's big. I mean, West Bloomfield won it with 4 minutes, 48 seconds. Farnsdale's Mercy was second, 4 minutes, 90 seconds. But the team Lake Orion had to hold off with Clarkston. And they did their job. They did their job. They did their job. So you kind of think about it, Coach Andrew McDonald's got balance. He's got balance in the girls. You kind of think about this with the balance, that that the girls have. You had the sprints, you had the distance, you had the field events. And you look at the feeder system, you look at the middle school system with Lake Orion, you look at, of course, Scripps with Debbie McDonald, you look at Walden with John Blackstock, you look at Oakview with Don McLaughlin. They're building athletes over there. They're building athletes. That says a lot. You got to give those three a lot of credit. You got to give those three coaches in the middle school level a ton of credit. Because they bring kids into the high school levels, and they are producing results. Well, and then you look at Clarkston, same thing. I know with Clarkston, you look at with them, the junior high, all 8th grade, and then you look at Sashabaw middle with 6th and 7th. Credit to them. Their coaching staff has done a really nice job with that program. They've done a nice job with them. And you look at these results, it's always really tight. And you look at that girls' meet, predictions, you know what I mean? You got to go with it with an open mind. Because if you don't go with an open mind, that could be trouble. So I give Coach Andrew McDonald a lot of credit here, but I also give the kids a lot of credit. Because you look at what happened there. You look at what happened. I really felt, in my opinion, and this is my own opinion, you know what I mean, that shot put was the big difference because Lake Orion got 3 points there. Clarkston did not score. Because you look at the results there, and you look at the results in that event, that ended up being a big deal. Because especially with those two, I mean, Madison Bose Nesbo and Emily Atkins, 7th and 8th, that's 3 points right there. And you look at Clarkston, obviously, Adia Bartz. We know how good she is. Only throwing 29 feet, 9.5. So that says something right there. Really does. I mean, and then obviously the performance of Wall Lake Central, that was another shock for me. That they struggled. But I just think that Lake Orion's balance ended up being the big difference in that one. So that was the difference there. Other results here, of course, on the from the team side of things here. Farmington was 4th with 64 points. West Bloomfield was 6th with 54 points. North Farmington 7th with 49. Oxford 8th with 47. And then, Waterford Kettering at 18 points. That was the OAA scoring. Now, Kettering and Mott are officially both not in the conference yet. They're going to be in the conference. So, so if you wonder why I keep including Waterford Kettering and Waterford Mott in this conversation, I'm just letting you know they're going to be future members of the conference starting in the winter. So I'm just letting everybody know about that. For those who are wondering, of course, yeah, Waterford Kettering, Waterford Mott right now, part of Lake Valley. They're going to be in there for the fall, but I'm starting to include them. They're going to be included in the football preview show. I will talk to both their coaches, this summer, hopefully to get a chance to talk to both of them, about their teams coming in. So, so that's why I consider Waterford Kettering and Waterford Mott, right now, even though they're not official members, it's kind of the same situation how it is right now. So we'll see how that one goes. Other regionals, obviously, other regionals, Detroit Country Day was dominant in their regional. Obviously Harper Woods, Ferndale were both in there. Detroit Country Day, we know how good they've been. Pontiac was out in the with Yale and them. Goodrich and them. Goodrich ended up winning that one. And the girls' side, Orchard Lake St. Mary's won the boys' side. So you kind of think about it, you know what I mean, with everybody. You know, that's really how the regional went. So we got the Oakland County meet to preview before we talk girls soccer, baseball, softball matchups. Those matchups are already out. When I look at the county meet, is there anybody in the girls that can dethrone Oak Park? And by the looks of it, it does. I don't really see it because of how Giles loads everything up. He loads everything up. As I mentioned in the regional, you look at what he did in the regional, you kind of think about that's how he's going to approach it. That is how he's going to approach it. He's going to approach it basically the same game plan that he had in the regional. That's how he's going to approach it. Load up the sprinting events, load up the mid-distance, load up the hurdles. So that's how he's going to do it. And then, of course, he's going to load up the relays. I mean, who knows? I mean, like, he could also, have those kids focus on the state meet. Because the state meet is that following week. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Because I think it's going to be really interesting to see how, Oak Park plays this in the region. It's going to be interesting. Because, like I said, it's going to come down to can they find a way? Is there anybody in there that can dethrone Oak Park? And by the looks of it, Oak Park has basically said no. There is no way they can dethrone us. So we'll see what happens. Boys side, I think the boys is a little bit more competitive. The boys side of things, I think, is going to be a lot more competitive. Because Oak Park, you could say, is the early favorite. But I think Clarkson will give him problems. I think Adams will give him problems. But I think, who knows? Maybe a sleeper could be a possibility. Could Lake Orion be a sleeper? Maybe. I mean, they can be. I mean, they're more than capable. So I think it's going to come down to can this team, I think it's going to come down to West Bloomfield could be a player too. Orchard Lake St. Mary's could be a player. I mean, I think the boys is wide open. I think the county and the boys is wide open. In the girls, I just think I don't see anybody dethroning Oak Park. I just don't see that. I mean, could Rochester? I mean, Lake Orion might. Clarkston? I mean, you don't know. Nobody knows. It's going to be hard to dethrone them. Really hard. So we'll see what happens. Let's go to girls soccer here. Obviously, the matchups came out. So we're going to preview them. We're going to also look at baseball, softball as well. Our first matchup for soccer is going to be, our first district will be at Oxford. Oxford takes on Davison. That winner plays Lake Orion. Clarkson takes on Grand Blanc. And Lapeer takes on Flush. So, when I look at this district here, Lake Orion, the way they're playing right now, I just think that it's going to be interesting to see. I think if it's Davison, that's going to be a tricky matchup for them. Oxford's also another tricky matchup because it's on their home field. Davidson's going to be playing Oxford at Oxford. Clarkson playing at Grand Blanc. And Lapierre's taking on Flushing. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that one goes. But when I look at this district here, of course, Anthony Taormina, the host of History Now, did his preview as well. Both of us are going Lake Orion in this one. I think for I think the difference here is Lake Orion's experience. I think that'll play a factor here. They've been here before, and I think Lake Orion could do some damage. I wouldn't be surprised if Clarkson upsets Grand Blanc. And it wouldn't surprise me if Clarkson makes a run to the district final. I really wouldn't be surprised if they do make a run. I honestly would, because Clarkson, the way they've been, they've got some losses, but they're a very dangerous team. Next, we go to Heartland. We got West Bloomfield taking on Bloomfield Hills, Wall Lake Central, Waterford, Mott. The other side, we got Milford, Wall Lake Northern, Lakeland versus Heartland. This is shaping out to be Heartland, Bloomfield Hills. Heartland's got home field. Bloomfield Hills has not lost this year. So, in this one, I'm going Heartland. Of course, Anthony's going Bloomfield Hills. So, should be really interesting there. See how that one goes. See who's right. District 8 at Farmington. Got Novi versus North Farmington. That winner's taking on Northville. Farmington, South Lyon East, and then South Lyon versus Bonnie Stevenson. Interesting. Both of us are going to go Northville here. I think both of us got Northville here. I don't trust South Lyon East. North Farmington. They were in the if they would have took on Livonia Stevenson, them and Livonia Stevenson with a switch, I would have took North Farmington, but I just gotta go with the Mustangs here. Too much experience. District 13 at Berkeley. Detroit Renaissance versus Groves. Then that one is taking on Berkeley. Ferndale versus Seaholm. A&T versus Royal Oak. I'm going Seaholm here. I think Seaholm's got a good chance. Anthony Taormina, he's going with Seaholm. We'll see how that one's going. District 14 at Athens. Fraser versus Warren Cousineau. That one is taking on Troy Athens. Warren Mott versus Troy. Sterling Heights versus Stevenson. I'm going Troy Athens here. I think Athens has got a great chance here. I gotta go Red Hawks. He's going Red Hawks too. District 15 at Adams. We got Stony Creek versus Eisenhower. Winner's taking on Rochester. 4-2 taking on Adams. That winner's taking on Romeo. This has got to be Rochester's year. This has got to be it. This has got to be their year. They don't win this. Something, then I'd be pressing the panic button. I got to go Rochester here. This is their opportunity to have a deep run. This is their golden opportunity. They got to do it. Now or never for them. District 27 at Orchard Lake St. Mary's on the red turf. We got Saginaw versus Holly. Waterford County versus Lake Fenton. Avondale versus Fenton. Linden versus Orchard Lake St. Mary's. I'm going Holly. I think the Bronchos have a great chance here to win this one. Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Waterford County, Avondale's the wild card. Orchard Lake St. Mary's, we know how good they are. Lake Fenton's a solid team. And that one here, anything can happen. Anything can happen. We'll see how that one goes. District 29 at Grosse Pointe South. We got at Grosse Pointe North, Hamtramck, Warren Woods Tower, Grosse Pointe North versus Lakeshore. Harper Woods takes on Madison Heights Lampier. Warren Fitzgerald takes on Centerline. Tough draw for Harper Woods. Going Warren Woods Tower. He's also going He's also going, it's going to be tough for Harper Woods. And then District 30 at Cranbrook Kingswood. Walled Lake Weston takes on Cranbrook Kingswood. That one is taking on Birmingham Marion. Oak Park versus Parnell's Mercy. Redford Thursday versus Garden City. I'm going Birmingham Marion. Oak Park's going to have it really, really tough. So we'll see what happens there. Then we go to the matchups in base. We're going to start with baseball. District 14 at West Bloomfield. We got West Bloomfield versus Walled Lake Central. North Farms versus Walled Lake Western. I think that West Bloomfield can win this one. I think they're going to win this one. So I got the Lakers in that one. District 15 at Northville. We got Northville versus Lonnie Stevenson. That winner is taking on Farmington. Nobody versus nobody, Detroit Catholic Central. I got to go with the Shamrocks here. I think the Shamrocks are going to win this one. Tight over Northville. I just think that I'm not sold on Farmington. The Lonnie Stevenson is a good team, but I just think that nobody, Detroit Catholic Central, they have just enough. District 23 at A&T. We got Ferndale versus Detroit Renaissance. That winner's taking on UD Jesuit. A&T versus Mumford. Again, no one touched the Cubs. Gotta go with the Cubs. District 24 at Groves. Groves is Warren Mott. Berkeley is Royal Oak. It's gonna be an all-the-way final. I got Groves versus Berkeley. I'm gonna take Berkeley in this one to win that district. District 25 at Seaholm. Troy versus Birmingham Brother Rice. That winner's taking on Seaholm. Avondale versus Bloomfield Hills. I think it's gonna shape up to be I think it's Brother Rice versus Bloomfield Hills. I think that the Warriors will win this one. It's their district to lose. So we'll see how that one goes. District 28 at Utica. Troy Athens versus Sterling Heights. That one is taking on Utica. Utica 4-2 versus Sterling Heights Stevenson. I'm gonna go with Utica. I think Utica wins this one. They've had Athens' number. I just think they're gonna make some noise here. I think this is Utica's year to get some revenge. After what happened against Athens. So we'll see how that one goes. District 30, Adams versus Stony Creek. That one is taking on Eisenhower. Rochester Lake Orion. Adams has been very good all year. Ranked third in the state. Wouldn't be surprised Stony Creek sends their best pitcher. And he's beaten Adams in the past. Won't surprise me if that happens. In this one here, I'm going to take... Lake Orion is the wild card here. Rochester, we know, is a good team. If Lake Orion could put a consistent game together, if they could turn things around, I think they can win this district. I know it's a homer pick. I'm going to take Lake Orion this one. I think they're going to shock some people here. I know they've been very inconsistent all year long, but I just think that the Dragons, I think they're going to have a chance here to pull out, maybe pull a rabbit out of the monkey, put a rabbit out of a rabbit hole. You know what I mean? So I think Lake Orion will win this. I think they'll win this one. It'll be tough, it'll be competitive, so we'll see how that one goes. District 31 at Oxford, Clarkson, Grand Blanc. That winner's taking on Holly. Oxford versus Fenton. I gotta go Grand Blanc here. I just think Grand Blanc's got too much. State ranked, I know. They're a solid team. See how that one goes. District 60 at Harper Woods, East Point versus Harper Woods, Chandler Park Academy. That winner's taking on Troy Southeastern. Harper Woods versus Salt Lake. I'm gonna take Salt Lake here in this one. I think the Cavs are gonna win this one here. I just think that it's gonna be tough, but I just think at the end of the day it's gonna be interesting to see how that one goes. Next we go to softball. District 17 at Ferndale. Ferndale versus Bradford Thurston. Troy Mumford versus Renaissance. Gotta go with the Phoenix here. I think the Phoenix will win this one. I just think Detroit Renaissance too much. So we'll see how that one goes. Ferndale's got a shot, so we'll see how that one goes there. District 21 at Troy. Troy versus Royal Oak. Athens versus Berkeley. All four teams got a great chance here. If I had to pick somebody, I would trust Laura Guzman here in this one. I got to take the Colts here. I think Troy can win this district. I just think Troy can do some wonders. We'll see how that one goes. District 22 at Romeo. You got Rochester versus Romeo. That one is taking on Eisenhower. Adams versus Stony Creek. I'm taking the Cougars. I got Stony Creek here. I think Stony Creek pitching, I think their offense is good enough. They have that win against Lake Orion. I'm going to take the Cougars in that one. I think they're going to win that district at Romeo. So, we'll see how that one goes there. But I think Stony Creek will move on. District 25 at Avondale. Avondale, Bloomfield Hills. Groves versus Seaholm. It's a tough district. I just think, honestly, in that one, I'm going to take Bloomfield Hills. I just think the Blackhawks, I like what Coach Whiteside's done with that program over there. Bloomfield Hills has been very proven. They're a dangerous team. I mean, so Bloomfield Hills, to me, they got a shot to do some damage. I think this is their opportunity to make some noise in that one. I think they're going to get by Seaholm, and I think they're going to move on to the regional. No, District 28-6 at Farns Hills Mercy. You got Nord versus Farns Hills Mercy, and then Farns versus A&T. No one's touching the Marlins. Marlins are loaded. They are loaded. Be a tough challenge for anybody in that one. Again, nobody's touching the Marlins. They could arguably be the state's best team this year. And Farms Hills Mercy's got a lot to prove after what happened to them last year in the state semifinals, losing to Hudsonville, which was just shocking. How they lost that one. They still got the best pitcher in the state, so we'll see how that one goes. District 30 at Walled Lake Northern. We got West Blue versus Lakeland, Walled Lake Central, Walled Lake Northern. Nobody's touching the I like the Eagles in this one. I think there's gonna be a battle of Bougie Lake. I think the Eagles win this one at Walled Lake Northern. It'll be competitive, but I just think Lakeland will be too much. So we'll see how that one goes. District 31 over at Oxford. You got Lake Orion versus Waterford Kettering. That winner's taking on Waterford Mott. Clarkson versus Oxford. Again, nobody's touching Lake Orion. I mean, I just think Lake Orion's got enough offense. I could see Lake Orion versus Oxford in the district final. Now, Clarkson, they could have a say, especially with how they've been growing and developing this year. But I just think Lake Orion with their offense, their pitching staff, they got one of the best pitchers in the state, Riley Lineberger. I think she's going to make some noise. She's going to do some damage in this one. I just think the Dragons will be too much in that district. Then we have District 56 over at Detroit Denby Tech. Harper Woods taking on Detroit Martin Luther King. Then Detroit Denby Tech takes on Detroit Henry Ford. When I look at this district, and this was a district that was completely remade because Harper Woods was in district number 56 to 55. But they made some big changes into this district, considering there wasn't a lot of teams in there. So they moved Harper Woods out of their original district, which had Harper Woods, Chandler Park Academy, South Lake, Grosse Pointe, and they moved them further south into Detroit. But they played Detroit Denby Tech earlier in the year, and Harper Woods had a really, really tough time with them. So, kind of think about it for Harper Woods, you kind of think, could this be a good opportunity for the Pioneers to win a district title? Now you add Detroit Denby Tech into the fold, and now you're staring them, and now that could be some problems. I mean, that could really be a big, big problem for a team like Harper Woods. They've seen Detroit Denby Tech before, and I just think it's going to come down to can Harper Woods overcome, obviously their Detroit Denby Tech problem, and that district's at Detroit Denby. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Pioneers handle this. Unfortunately, if you're a Harper Woods fan, I'm going to go with Detroit Denby Tech. I just think Detroit Denby, they beat them earlier in the year. It was pretty bad. So I think Detroit Denby Tech's going to win that district, and we'll see what happens going forward. We're going to see what happens. All right, everybody, I'm going to sign off here. Make sure you follow the blog at SagamBay4650 at blogspot.com for the latest information around the OAA. I wish everybody a special happy Memorial Day. We'll keep an eye on the Oakland County results for track and field coming up this weekend. Of course, we have freshman county meets that taking place on Tuesday. Then, of course, we have the high school county meet on Friday over at Oakland University. And then also we have the Oakland County Middle School track meet that'll be held next Thursday at Clarkston before we wrap up the track season with the state meet over on the west side of the state on a very big day for the entire state of Michigan. I know they call it Super Saturday, where you have lacrosse going on, baseball, softball, everything going on all at once. So we're getting really close to the end of the year. So we'll see what happens going forward We're keeping an eye on the basketball situations over at Berkeley A&T. Ferndale and Adams on the girls' side, along with Berkeley and Southfield for the boys' side. So we'll see what happens going forward. We're getting that type of time of year to start summer ball. We're getting really close to June. So yeah, I'm going to sign off here. Take care. God bless. And I will see y'all next week, everybody. Take care. God bless all. God bless all.